I'm Chad Parent, Harvest Survey Coordinator for the North Dakota Game and Fish Department. When we manage wildlife populations, we need a few key pieces of biological information. And one of those things includes the number of animals that are removed from the population. But a big part of that is the number of animals that hunters harvest at the end of each season. And to do that, we use hunter harvest surveys as a tool to collect that information. We send out surveys in two primary ways. We have our traditional paper survey that we send through the mail and hunters send it back to us. And then we have an internet survey that we deliver to hunters' email inboxes. And our paper surveys have worked really well for us for a lot of years, and our internet surveys work great as well. But internet surveys, like as with any technology, they're going to have their challenges. So a paper survey, they're kind of bulletproof. We have full control over the design of that survey because we print it in-house and we mail it in-house. However, with our internet surveys, we give up a lot of that control. For example, we can't control the type of device that a hunter is using to open and interact with our surveys, whether that's a tablet, a mobile device, or a computer. We can't control if our hunters are using a web browser that just doesn't like our links. We can't control if our hunters have an internet service provider that just uses a really aggressive spam filter and doesn't want to deliver those surveys to email inboxes. And so, luckily, the vast majority of our hunters have no problems opening up our harvest surveys and interacting with them. But there is a small number of people that do experience some of those challenges. And so if you find yourself, struggling with some of our surveys and trying to get them open, we encourage you to reach out to us and let us know so that we can try and help, because chances are if you're one of those people that are having an issue, there are going to be other people that are having an issue. And we can fix some of those things. And if we can hear back from you and get some feedback, we can make the system better for everybody. In general, our hunters are really good about returning surveys. Depending on the hunting season, we're getting anywhere from 50 to 70% of our surveys back. We're trying to maybe be a little bit more cautious about how many reminders we send out. Some of our hunting seasons, we may be persistent because we really need to get those surveys back and we need to get that information back from hunters. A more maybe concerning situation that we care a lot more about is the situation where a hunter, maybe they've got some concerns with the department, or maybe, we have some policies that we use to manage wildlife populations, and those are not their favorite policies, and so they choose not to return their surveys for that reason. And to that I'd say we really want to hear back from those guys. Even if you have kind of uncomfortable information for us, your voice is just as important as the next guy, and your perspective is just as important as the next guy. And we welcome that. We can't get better unless we hear from everybody. And so, yeah, I guess I know there's frustrations run high sometimes, but we would like your surveys back. So here are a few tips for hunters if you just tend to forget to return your surveys. So we always send out our surveys the Monday morning after a hunting season closes. And so while it's not guaranteed that you're going to get sampled to participate in one of our surveys, if you were and if you did, I'd encourage hunters to check their email inboxes on Monday morning to look out for that survey. Another tip is that we use a couple of different online survey platforms to design and deliver our surveys. And one of those is called Alchemer, and the other one is called Qualtrics. And so when you get one of our survey invitations to participate, it's not necessarily going to come from an @nd.gov email domain. It may come from something that looks a little bit different with that Alchemer, that Qualtrics email address at the end of it. And finally, sometimes, just with really aggressive spam filters, sometimes those emails don't make it to your inbox. and they get into a junk folder. And so if you see one of our emails for a survey that lands in your junk folder, we encourage you to just mark us as a safe sender so we can continue to get those to your email inbox more reliably into the future. So the department has always been really sensitive about the amount of time that it takes to complete a survey. Going back 40 years, our paper surveys were a single page, and so you could get that done in probably less than a minute. It probably takes you longer to seal the envelope than to complete some of those paper surveys. And with the internet, we may ask a few more questions that provide really good biological information because it's just a little bit more efficient to do that over the internet. But even some of those surveys, a couple of minutes at most. Our surveys are completely voluntary, and so there's no consequences to the hunter for not returning one of our surveys. But I guess I just, encourage the hunters to think more broadly. A harvest estimate is a piece of statistical information, and the more surveys that we get back, the more accurate that our harvest surveys are going to be. And so while there are no consequences to the hunter, the consequences would accrue to the wildlife populations and then the hunting community as well. Because what happens is if we don't get enough surveys back, our estimates of harvest that we use to make wildlife decisions, they tend to be a little bit less accurate. And so what that can mean is that we're overestimating the number of animals that were actually harvested, and that may lead to a management decision where we reduce the number of licenses that are available in the upcoming year, which takes opportunity away from all of the rest of the hunters. Alternatively, if we underestimate the population, we may be making decisions that are potentially harming the wildlife populations well into the future. And so, when we collect this information, we're not collecting it just so that we have it or just so that we know. We're collecting this information so that we can make good decisions about managing wildlife populations well into the future. When our hunters return surveys, we've got a lot of smart people in our state, and I think they understand the biological importance of returning those surveys and the role that they play in managing wildlife populations. But I think one aspect of that maybe we don't think a lot about is the ethical responsibility of returning surveys. Because when we return a hunting harvest survey, we're making a statement that we care about wildlife populations. We're making a statement that says that we care about the hunting community that we belong to and that we want to keep wildlife populations around for not just today, but for tomorrow as well and future generations.